Hi folks, Shiva here to help you help your loved ones through thoughts of suicide or emotional distress. Today, I want to reflect on the fact that sometimes, actually quite frequently, I have somebody in my workshop who tries to ask about suicide, but is so uncomfortable saying the word that they typically default to, are you having thoughts about harming yourself? Are you having self-harm thoughts? And while their intention is good, they're still looking to help this person. The lack of clarity about exactly what they're asking isn't helpful. All right. So my first point here is always ask clearly and directly. Why? Because self-harm can mean a lot of things. It can mean alcohol. It can mean marijuana. It can mean doom scrolling on your phone. For me, it might be stubbing my toe every day as I walk through the apartment, right? That's self-harm. Not intentional, but you're not being clear. So my first point on this is when you're addressing thoughts of suicide, ask very clearly and directly. The second point here is that we need to differentiate between self-harm and thoughts of suicide. Self-harm, as probably some of you know out there, is not always a sign that you want to end your life, right? Even the cutting, the burning, whatever self-harm it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that. For a lot of people, it's actually the opposite. It's a way to cope, right? To live, to push through. And so it's actually the opposite of suicide for a lot of people who might engage in this. And so you want to make sure there is that differentiation in your brain when you ask, right? Because you're asking about two very different things. Now, is it important to ask about self-harm? Absolutely. Why? Because self-harm can go wrong. I've had people who have told me that they believe if this person they loved wasn't drinking, they would have never been in that mindset to think this was a clear decision for them, right? So self-harm can impact your ability to think clearly through things, to think about future outcomes. Also, self-harm can go wrong, right? And so maybe they're using it as a coping strategy, but then you would also want to talk about how to make sure they're still safe. If it's not meant to die, if it's not meant to end their life, then we need to talk about how to put some safety parameters around this use so that you are never in that place, right? So again, this topic today is about self-harm versus suicide. The first point is ask clearly and directly. If you ask about self-harm instead of suicide, it shows your discomfort with the topic and it's not clear, and the person needs you to be clear about what you're asking. The second point is self-harm is sometimes done as coping, not necessarily related to wanting to end their life. So you want to make sure you're clear about the intention behind the self-harm. And thirdly, you want to make sure that if a person is engaging in self-harm, that you want to put some safety parameters around that, right? Because self-harm can go wrong. So let's discuss how to keep you safe if this is helping you cope. Ideally, we want to give them some healthier coping strategies, but right now, in this moment, need to create safety. That's all. Thanks, folks.